Hi, this is Bill Federer, and in this episode of How We Got Here, we're going to look at the Speaker of the House. And this is something that's in the news a lot recently. The Speaker of the House, what does the Speaker do? Well, beginning in 1789, with the very first U.S. Congress, the Speaker mainly moderated debates among the congressmen in Philadelphia and then called for a vote. It's pretty simple, but actually there's some complicated rules for moderating debates. And these are called Robert's Rules of Order. And they're drawn a lot from the English Parliament. And they are sort of mundane to read through, but whoever masters these can be tremendously successful in implementing their agenda in a country or in any meeting where you have debate going on. So the speaker over the years became more powerful. And one of the reasons is because the speaker appoints the congressman to be on the different committees. And it's the committees that decide what gets through. So a little background on this. So a congressman will introduce a bill, and the Speaker of the House will assign the bill to a committee of people that he has oversight over and help put on those committees, and they will debate and talk about it. And if they don't like that bill, it stops there. But if they pass it, it goes on to something else called the Rules Committee. And if they don't like it, it stops there. But if it gets past that, it goes back to the Speaker. Now, originally, the Speaker would then put it on the calendar, and it would be sent to the full House where the congressmen and senators could debate it. But of recent times, the Speaker has been bypassing that and not letting congressmen debate it, and would send it directly to the full House for a vote, and often with very little time to read it. And so this is how you would get these 1,000-page bills that they would rush through and pass and vote for, and nobody read them. And the most infamous line was when Speaker Nancy Pelosi was pushing through Obamacare. And she said, "We have to hurry up and pass this so we can find out what's in it." If that isn't the most ridiculous statement, these are the congressmen. They're supposed to know what's in it. They're supposed to debate what's in it. And for her to say, we don't have time for debate. We just have to hurry up and pass this. And so this is one of the reasons that you had several of the congressmen and congresswomen wanting to have rules changes agreed upon before the new speaker was put in. Now, whenever you hear someone say we have to hurry up and disregard rules because we have to pass something, immediately red flags should go up in your head. Why? Because this is what dictators do. Julius Caesar, Rome was a republic for 500 years with 600 senators, and they would debate stuff, and Julius Caesar comes along and says, "We don't have time for that. We just have to hurry up and pass it." And he usurped power and made himself dictator. And so always be careful when you hear people saying we have to set aside some rules because we have to hurry up. There's a pandemic, there's something, we got to hurry up. That's when you should not hurry up. Now, when there's actually a political strategy called fear mongering, and it's the intentional stirring up of the country into fear and panic, so they will demand that something hurry up and be done. And then the government can say, okay, well, we're just going along with your wishes, and we'll hurry up and we'll usurp your power. So it's this strategy to get the media to drum something up over and over again. Joseph Goebbels was Hitler's minister of propaganda, and he said, think of the media as a keyboard on which the government can play, and that the government is involved in forming the public opinion of the country. So when you think of it, the most efficient form of government is a dictatorship. the dictator says it, it happens, or heads get chopped off. And so our founding fathers broke away from a dictator, so to speak. The King of England was the most powerful king on planet Earth. The sun never set on the British Empire. And so America's founders were breaking away from that, and they wanted to take concentrated power and separate it. So they actually designed a system of government that was slow intentionally to get things done. Slow to making good decisions, but thank God, slow to making irreversible bad decisions. Thomas Jefferson was ambassador to France when they wrote the U.S. Constitution. He comes back and he's having tea with George Washington. And he is complaining that there's a bicameral Congress. That means two houses, a House and a Senate. And he was saying how it's going to take forever to get stuff done. And Washington was having tea with him, right? And Jefferson's habit was to take the scalding hot tea and tip it over into the china saucer and then pour it back into his cup to cool it down. And Washington said, well, Jefferson, you just demonstrated the design of the Congress right then. And Jefferson said, how? He says, you poured your hot tea into the saucer to cool it down in the same way we have two houses. In other words, it was designed to never pass something in a panic, never to do something in a hurry. So a bill would be in Congress and they'd pass it. Well, then it would go to the Senate, and then it would have to go back and forth, and they'd iron out the details. In other words, it would cool down until they were absolutely sure it was something they wanted passed, never something passed in a hurry. So our founders realized it could take a lifetime to build a mansion and one irresponsible match to burn the thing down in a day. Now, the first Speaker of the House was a pastor. That's right, Lutheran pastor Frederick Augustus Muhlenberg. And he was originally a pietist, and these were people that thought you should not get involved in government because it's dirty. And so he was not involved, but during the Revolution, the British invaded New York and burnt his church down. And afterwards, he changed his mind and says, well, we do need to get involved. He got elected to Congress, and he got elected the first Speaker of the House. So what did he pass? What did he help pass? The Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, first 10 amendments. And so these were amendments to tie the hands of the federal government. The preamble of the Bill of Rights says to prevent an abuse of power, certain restrictive clauses shall be placed on the Constitution. It was to chain this new government up so it wouldn't turn into a Frankenstein. Anyway, prior to the Civil War, an important speaker was Henry Clay, and he was helpful in keeping the country united. So you had the North and South, and the divisions were heightening, and if the country showed weakness, it would be the perfect opportunity for Britain to come back over, right? They did in the War of 1812, and France was wanting to get involved. They did in Mexico, and so if we would have shown weakness and division, we could have had foreign invasion. So Henry Clay helped keep the country together. Then you had Speaker Joe Cannon in 1910. There's a Cannon building in Washington, D.C. He concentrated power so much that his own party members rebelled against him. And so afterwards they had to reduce the power and give it back to the different committees. And there's a Speaker, Democrat Tip O'Neill, and he again concentrated powers and was the one who stood up to Ronald Reagan, trying to keep his agenda from happening. Years ago, I met Democrat Speaker of the House Jim Wright, and then I spoke at several events with Newt Gingrich, the Republican Speaker of the House. I ran for Congress several times, and against Democrat Minority Leader Richard Gebhardt, and he was bragging that he was going to be the next speaker, and I had a part in thwarting that. But while I was campaigning, we had the Republican Speaker Dennis Hastert, and he flew to St. Louis and spoke in my different campaign events. And then you had the Speaker, John Boehner and Paul Ryan, and I met them during my period of campaigning. Now I'm actually at an airport lounge here, so I appreciate your patience with the background. So what we've witnessed over the last several years is a concentrating of power under Nancy Pelosi. And it was so much that when we were electing Kevin McCarthy, you had 20 some odd congressmen wanting rules changed so that the power would again go back to the congressmen and they could have debates. One of the congressmen said that they debated more that week than they had in the previous 2 years because of them just ramming these bills through. Now, Kevin McCarthy was sworn in as the 55th Speaker of the House, and he took the gavel, that wooden hammer that you knock down when you want to call to order, and he made some comments that I want to share with you in his address. Kevin McCarthy said that there's a commitment for a nation that's safe, where communities are protected, law enforcement is respected, and criminals are prosecuted. He goes on, our system is built on checks and balances. It's time for us to be a check and provide some balance to the president's policies. Our first bill, he says, will repeal funding for 87,000 new IRS agents. Now just a pause here. I have a degree in accounting. I wrote a book on the history of income tax, and you have our government creating trillions of dollars out of nothing, just with a stroke of a pen. And all this money is chasing the same amount of goods, causing the price of those goods to go up, and it's causing inflation. And it sort of begs the question, why do we even pay taxes when the government can just create money out of thin air, right? And then we're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine and other countries when we have people in need right here. Anyway, back to Kevin McCarthy's speech. He says, we're going to pass bills to fix the nation's urgent challenges, from the wide open southern border to America Last energy policies to woke indoctrination of our schools. And so that's one of the things that Turning Point Academy is addressing, the woke indoctrination of the schools. But it's nice to see that the Speaker of the House now realizes that that is a threat. He goes on, we will also address America's long-term challenges, the debt, and the Chinese Communist Party. And they've been buying influence in Washington, D.C. He goes on to say, we will create a bipartisan select committee on China to investigate how to bring back hundreds of thousands of jobs that went to China. We will hold the swamp accountable, from the withdrawal from Afghanistan to the origins of COVID to the weaponization of the FBI. Now, withdrawal from Afghanistan. We left $85 billion worth of our most advanced weapons for the Taliban. And they've been arming and funding the Taliban since the 1970s during the Afghan-Soviet War. And so it begs the question, how can they surprise us and take all of our weapons when we've been arming and training the Taliban for so many years? This needs to be investigated. The origins of COVID. More and more is coming out that it was created with gain of function research. This was the making it more deadly on purpose. And it was done through Fauci funneling money to the Wuhan lab. This needs to be investigated. And then the weaponization of the FBI. Hundreds of pro-life centers and churches have been attacked and bombed, and the FBI has not investigated who did that, yet they'll investigate on the other side. He goes on, we will use the power of the purse and the power of the subpoena to get the job done. So the U.S. Congress is where the money comes from. They're the ones that vote for these money bills. And if they say no, then you can have the president and the Supreme Court make decisions, but it's not going to happen if there's no money. The power of the subpoena, what's that? Well, when you have to call people in to answer questions, the fear of that causes people to be honest and to not do as many corrupt things if they know they're going to have to talk about it in front of a Congress. He goes on, one of our first hearings will be held at the southern border. No more ignoring the crisis of safety and sovereignty. We must secure our border. And he ends, God bless everyone in this chamber, and God bless America. Well, I hope this brief look at the position of the Speaker of the House will help you to understand a little more of how we got here. God bless you.